what is matter? Does matter create energy? On the atomic, subatomic level, there's some sort of force that, whether it vibrates or oscillates, but it has the ability to affect another entity.
Yep.
And these entities, these matters, sometimes we can see and feel as humans. And supposedly a majority of our entire consciousness is something that we cannot even see or feel, this dark matter. And the energy still has an influence on that. So it's this medium that can transfer between multiple dimensions and realms of our universal existence, which is like, I can't even understand it, honestly, really. My human brain, evolutionarily, biologically, I don't think I have the tools, the machinery within my consciousness to fully understand what the fuck's going on. From a Hawaiian perspective, and just my Hawaiian perspective, I feel I do understand it. And it's not something that I try to define, but it's something that is easily felt. And mana is a very distilled expression of what that is. And for me, the mana is in so many things. And from a purpose standpoint, as Hawaii, I try my best to increase the amount of mana that I have. And maybe it's like increasing my ability to affect something or something else in the world. And I want that effect to be positive. I want it to make other people feel good. I want it to make other ecosystems function more appropriately. I want to find the level of balance in my life that I can give and affect. And to me, that's what the mana is for me.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Buoy Report Podcast, where we are documenting waves of energy, from big waves to renewable energy waves, thought waves, and mind waves. Hope you enjoy. Aloha. Carry on. Brother Cliff, welcome to Haiku.
Yeah,
Thank you for coming, man.
Yeah, stoked.
How's it been? It's been an amazing winter, huh?
I've probably spent more time on Maui this winter than I have ever in my life.
Really? From Honolulu to Jaws?
Yeah. It's been a crazy run. It's nice to be over to come back to Maui and spend some time in the waves and just hang out with the community. I think it's like I used to come actually to Maui a lot when I was in high school. And just after high school, I used to spend the summers over here, and then the winters I was teaching surf lessons at Kanapali.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, with my family. They're from Lahaina.
Okay. Right
by Mala. So I would come and I would stay, and they joke around, and they would always ask me, "Oh, do you have a return ticket?" And I'd be like, "Oh no, one way." But I would stay there, and I started really kind of meeting a lot of people on Maui.
Okay.
And surfing Honolua and Lahaina and Ma'alaya Kihei, and rarely kind of coming up to Ho'okipa side, but we go to like Hana and some other places along that side too. And and just, you start meeting everyone, and it's just like you're all kids. And then now being back and seeing now these relationships that are like now like 10, 15, 20 years old, it's like, it's nice to be back.
Oh, bitchin'. Let's get the big elephant out of the room. How was Jaws for you? That was such an insane heater of a run.
Yeah, I think really being back home on the Big Island, I haven't been able to dedicate as much time to really come and hang out for such like a fickle wave, it seems like to me. But yeah, having like kind of like 5 years, I feel of like it felt for me like I couldn't really get back out here very much. Maybe one session a year to I've had 6 sessions already, and like 15 waves I've gotten.
Really start learning the lineup and your markers and get a feel and rhythm for it.
Yeah, it's like, it's so nice to be able to not just, you wait all year when it's like a once a year thing. You wait all year thinking about what can I do differently? What can I? Yeah, and when you have that opportunity to, like, I guess when it's like kind of a yearly annual thing, and you're like what can I do better? What can I improve? What can I learn more? And you start thinking about it, but you have so much time away, the subtleties and the nuances of the place, you forget. And then you have to kind of recalibrate where you are and how things exist. And then you can start building upon it. Having so many sessions so close together. Like, I remember what was like 2-3 weeks ago, it was like 4 or 5 days back to back to back to back. So there was so much information and so much data that you're able to compute and process and kind of improve upon in real time. It's like been amazing. And granted, I don't know if the waves were as big and crazy as it was consistently as it was maybe in like those 2015, 16 years. But for me, that was like, those years were my first introduction into the place. So I was just mesmerized by the space and everything that came along with it. Not just the wave, but again, like that energy that exists out there. And it wasn't really until maybe this winter that I started to feel like I was learning a whole nother chapter. Like, it was a new level of understanding that I was able to be brought into. And again, the community is another strong part of that. Before I was coming, and everyone was very inviting when I came before. This winter, really, it was a sharing, it felt like, and it's been amazing.
Well, that paddle crew is such a tight knit little crew, and you're obviously rolling with some serious hammers with Tori and the fellow Big Eye Boy, and he's got some serious data to share from how many sessions they've done. It was crazy though. It was almost like for me, it was like there's 6 days in a row of that swell, and there was almost too much swell to try and pace and pick the windows, and knowing the big black mamba was waiting at the end of the week, and I was like trying to pace and paddle, get a couple, and then there's these windows that kept popping up because there was just these pulses, and I was like, I was off that, I missed that pulse. And then
that was kind of maybe a bit of a opportunity for myself to be able to say, every moment for me is such a huge moment for learning and for collecting data and experiencing it. So for me, I was just super, like, it feels like honored to be like out there every moment. And with that feeling, I think even if I go out every session and I don't know if I'm going to get a wave. Like, my whole thing, and it's different for everybody, but I have maybe more of a approach where, and maybe people share it too, I'm not sure. I don't really actually share too much of like my tall wave ideas or perspectives too much. But for me, I feel like there's these special moments that we may only experience so much in our lifetime. And there's times where this moment may not happen in a year. And I look at it and I think, okay, dedicating even say 10 years diligently to a moment that may not happen every year, you only have maybe 10 moments. And it just makes them more special when they align. And for me, even if I don't catch a wave, being in the moment and being respectful of everyone else's moments that they want to, I think really makes it always positive for me. Like, even sometimes I get pounded. It may not seem super positive, but those are lessons too. I try to grow from.
I just, like, when I go out there on a day, I'm always like, I have a game plan in my head, the wave that I'm looking for. I'm not looking for the West Poles like Albie's looking for. I'm backside Goofy Foot. So I'm like, okay, North Peak. Can I make my wave? Okay, if there's a nice left, I'm looking for a left. And the goal is always to get home and not break your body and be home and come back to the Ohana and like, we made it. And it was hard for me. Like, I wanted to send it on a couple, and like, I think that Saturday morning when I saw when those huge sets were coming in, that was it was a declining swell. It was more northwest, and there was still 25, 30 foot sets. But what makes Jaws so special is the wave is so perfect. That reef is so defined that you can hide in the channel and find, especially if it's consistent, you know where the line of fire is, and you can kind of tiptoe in. And that was an insane day to really paddle and push and get close, because there's so much energy that day as it was declining. Like, there ain't nothing worse than Jaws than a rising swell.
Totally.
Because if you look at Jaws, we'll get into it. The bathymetry of it is there's always another boil outside and another ledge, and you're sitting there and I'm like, something can break on that one. And then you just when you really can dial in a marker, a set comes, triangulate, get a little closer, another set, triangulate. Okay, I am in the hot seat. You know that the last time I saw you, I guess that 2015 when there's that clip of us going back to back on that set. Yeah. Aaron Gold had just caught a huge one that he actually won his second biggest wave, and he went. It was off the North Peak.
So deep.
And he just went straight and he made it. But I literally saw where he was, caught that wave. I was like 20 feet from him. He caught it so easy. And I was like, oh my God, it's here. Like, I was already working my way in from the left, and I was meeting the guys at the peak. Like, I usually, on those clean days, I come from the left and work my way up. Yeah. And I watched him catch that wave, and I saw the mark, and I went straight, and I triangulated it. 10 minutes later, I caught my left, and then you caught that wave like 2 waves after. It's a cool clip.
I was actually sitting in a place where I don't know if this is not good or it is what it is, but I just love a lot of close friends out there. So when I see them, I just want to say hello. And I to the point where even this last time I went straight to some friends. Hey, what's up? I ditched my board. I almost got pounded, but something part of me is like the people there. I love everyone out there so much that I want to say hello. And it's just nice to reunite with everyone. Yeah. And I seen Ben Wilkinson, and he was in his own zone. And I don't want to infringe on anyone's zones, because I know everyone has their lineups and markers and like that. But I seen Ben, and I went up to say hello, and he's just like such an amazing person that I just was like, what's up, Ben? We're talking story. And it was the day before I seen him, and it was that spot. And I had a real good talk story with him on a rising swell. It was that night. It was like rising really big. And then he caught a bomb out there. I thought he was just cruising, like taking a moment, but he was like waiting for a wave. And he was like out there. And then I went out to say hello. I thought we were just like going to be talking story. And then he's like talking, yeah, Cliff, great to see you. Okay. Wave comes, like kind of like, okay, I got to go now. Turns around, this massive wave takes off and just sends it on a bomb. And I think he might have got so pounded, his board might have broke. He went into the rocks, like disappeared. And then I was out there in this like spot that I was like, I've never been here before. Like, this is so far out and like in a weird spot away from everyone. And I was like, whoa, this is crazy. I ended up getting a wave after that evening. And for me, it probably was one of the tallest, if not the tallest wave I've gotten. And I remember taking off and the sun was setting, and I got to the bottom and I was trying to bottom turn, but I couldn't see where the lip was. And I just was scared that it was going to land on me. So the fear overwhelmed me. So I ended up straightening out and I took it straight, and I got super flogged. Kolomona grabbed me. He's like, you okay, Hawaiian? I was like, yeah, I think I'm okay. And I was like, do I look okay? And he's like, you look all right. I was like, okay, cool. And then we went back out there, and then the sun set, and that was the only wave I got. And I seen a picture of it, and it was just one of the most beautiful barrels I've ever seen. And that was the data that I've collected. Like, those are the ones that you go into the barrel on. Yep. And I was like, whoa, like Ben knew that. And that was like, whether it was intentional or not, it was a shared moment. Yep. And he was able to share that with me. And it was that next day that I went kind of back out there quietly in my own space. And then you got that one, and I was watching everyone, and I was like, yeah, Shawnee. And then that wave came, and I ended up getting a good ride there. And I didn't make that barrel.
Huge barrel though.
It was something that I remembered from just the night before, maybe going back to that idea of having opportunities so close together.
Yep.
You can improve so much quicker, which is, yeah, it's just, I'm so lucky. Just, I feel super lucky to be amongst it with you folks, and like just downloading and celebrating you folks. And if I get something, stoked. If not, like, it's nothing better than seeing your closest friends doing incredible things right in front of you. It's amazing.
Oh man, I'm getting like chickens. I get so much energy just being out there next to that wave, and you're like, you're feeling that energy, and you're seeing what guys are doing, and like I mean this discussion today is going to be about energy, and like that place has so much mana as it is, and it's just like I don't know, like when I come into the line, a lot of times I'll get dropped off. I'm paddling out by myself. I always have a moment by myself, like away from the lineup, away from the circus, whether it's deep down on the left or the right, but I'll have a moment where I'm like, meditation, get in the zone, take my breaths, do my breath routine, face in the water, and then usually I come up on the board, and the last thing is just like, mahalo keakua, just like, thank you for this opportunity. Let's embrace it. And it's like, but on the energy piece, one of the first times I went down on the rocks in the summertime, we had some friends. It was actually Jamie Mitchell was here. It was during the paddleboard race, and we're still, this is pre-paddle days, so it was tow days, and he had come over for the race. They were doing some paddleboard training, and so we were like, let's go up to Jaws and go swim in the shore break and check it out. And we went down there, and
let's go out to Jaws and swim in the shore break.
Summertime. This is July, dead flat.
That was a scary thought.
There's actually a little wave on East Swells. You could actually surf in that wave down there. But we hiked down, and there was a bunch of us, and in the river mouth was that brackish, and the pond was in full effect. There was this school of baby moi in the river mouth. And I mean, those are the king's fish, right? The story of, and it was just like, I just remember it was like, wow, this place is, this is it. It has like, you're like, when you're down in that valley, when nobody's around and without the stadium of a big day, it's like the energy of that valley is very powerful.
And those off moments that you can get alone. I've been super lucky to be in that valley when everyone thought it wasn't good, and you're just with yourself or another person. It's so quiet. And it's so still.
Like if you take the back trail too, if you're walking down, not the goat trail, but if you take the back trail and you kind of walk back in on the river, and there's this little spot where you can see the wave, and you're back in the valley, and it's just like, wow, it's pretty rad. Wow. It's like an old I think it's one of the dirt bike tracks that's down there. Wow. So.
Whole secret. Those are guys are gonna be like, "What are we talking about our moi hole?"
No, that was 10 years ago. But like, it was just. I mean, they're actually a little cakey.
But it might have been anyways. Might have not been.
But I just remember I was like, "This is a sacred spot." Like to see that, because those fish are very rare, hard to catch. You got to have the knowledge of where they're at. Totally. I just remember that was just like. So, well, we kind of dove straight into the surf stuff, but do me a favor, give me a little introduction to the who you are and where you're from and the scientist side and all that. Just give me the rundown of the.
Aloha mai. I'm Cliff Kapono. I'm from Hilo, Hawaii. I'm a surfer and a scientist who.
Stop you one thing. I know you're Hawaiian. Full name. Give me the whole.
Oh, you want my? Oh, well.
Beginning, middle, and end.
You're gonna hear my English names then, because my. It's funny. I have English names. My two first names are English.
Okay.
So I'm Clifford Allen Kapono.
Okay.
There's a whole story along why my name is Allen, but my family is the Allen family.
Okay.
And they're a Hawaiian family that first married into the Allens. And I'm named after the first non-Hawaiian to break our Hawaiian bloodline. William Charles Allen. And they had a son with Kahomeolani na Ohia o Kamalu. And he was William Kumuko Allen. So all the Allens from Hawaii came from William Kumuko Allen. And we share families with the Jarretts, the Reeves, the Hines, the Beamers, and the Allens.
Awesome.
And then we're married into like the Helms and those families. So Allen's an English name, coming from East Coast of the United States, from a whaler captain. But the Allens from William Kumukoa are originally from a family from Kohala. So that's where Allen comes from, Clifford Allen. and Clifford, I'm named after my father and my grandfather.
Gotcha.
And Kapono is a name that started with my grandfather, and we're from his line. He's a Kaha Hawai, the same Kaha Hawaiis from here on Maui, from Waihe'e side.
Yep.
So that's my
cool.
my name.
I just wanted to understand the family tree, because I always know, so a Hawaiian, his name. It's like there's a story behind it.
Yeah. So the Maui connection for my family is my grandma's side of the family is from Kanaio side, and my grandfather's side is from Waihe'e side. That's where my Maui ties from, but originally from Kohala. That's I think it was the like second or third canoe. Okay. No, sorry, I think it was like the seventh canoe of the second migration from Tahiti Nui, and then we came from a valley area known as Wharehape. I think it's like Papeano'o in Tahiti. So that's whenever second migration was. They came to Kohala, stayed Kohala for a while, and then when the whaling era happened, that's when the Allens came, and then the Kaha Hawaiis, obviously people from Maui, they're a big family in here, and then we moved all over, eventually moving back to Big Island. So that's
cool.
me.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Thank you for that little deep dive. I was like,
TMI.
It gives context to the story. So onto the scientist and the surfer and studies and all that good stuff. Yeah,
I'm formally trained in biological sciences. So I spent a lot of time in school in advanced science research programs. I started after high school in a biotechnology program. I actually graduated in a plant and environmental biotech program funded by Monsanto and Syngenta. So I was like, I think predestined to be the Hawaiian who supports GMO. This was in the early 2000s. I was given like a full ride essentially to be that. And when I started learning more about some of the nuances of what, not so much the technology, but how the technology was being used and how it was planned to be used in Hawaii, I was very discouraged, and I didn't continue on in that. I ended up moving into a graduate degree in molecular biosciences and biochemistry.
I'm sorry, what school was this at?
This is at University of Hawaii at Manoa.
Okay.
Yeah, so I graduated Kamehameha schools, and then I ended up not really getting accepted into any colleges. I didn't get accepted. I was like, I didn't have good enough grades.
All right, that's my alma mater too. I went to the business school.
So I did, in high school, I did like a science project.
Yep.
And the science project was DNA sequencing was like just coming up. So I learned how to do a technique called PCR, which probably people are familiar with now because of COVID and everything. But PCR really was hot in like the early 2000s as a new technology, super accessible that a high school kid could learn how to do it. And what I did is I looked at the shrimp farms up in Kahuku, and I was seeing that there was a disease called the white spot syndrome virus that was infecting the shrimp. And it was causing problems for the farmers. And what I learned about this PCR technology through DNA sequencing, I was like, oh, you can just take like a simple swab of whatever, and you can put it into this machine. And if you have the right genetic code that you're searching for, you can identify if the virus is there or not. And they're like, yeah. I was like, oh, I want to do this for shrimp on the North Shore. And they're like, why? I was like, oh, because like my friends, uncles and aunties, they're like losing money because the shrimp are getting sick and they can't sell it. So I ended up creating a little test, and it ended up like a PCR test. Super easy. It wasn't like genius level stuff. And I just said, hey, look, like let me sample your shrimp. And then I also found the virus in some of the food at the fish market. So I kind of figured out, oh, if you shouldn't feed them these infected things because then they'll get the disease or whatever. And it ended up winning like the science fair or whatever here in Hawaii. And I got into the internationals. They sent me to like this international conference, and it was like Sally Ride was the keynote speaker, and it was like everyone there was going to like Harvard and MIT, and they're like, where are you going? And I'm like, I'm not getting into college. They're like, what? And everyone's like, oh, this guy's stupid. Like, how do you get in here? But my teacher, my science teacher, she, Miss Duffy at Kamehameha School, she ended up having a conversation with the chair of the biotech department and said, hey, this kid did this. Can you help him get into school? And they ended up helping me get into college, which really without that, I don't know if I would have went to college. And I did the biotech program. And like I said, I moved into a molecular science program, biochemistry at UH. And then I was doing another technique that I was really learning. And really school for me wasn't to like know everything. I just wanted to learn a trade, a science trade. And at the time, I just was falling on these trades that in science were pretty advanced and like valuable. And I was learning how to do this technique called solid phase peptide synthesis. I was making these molecules manually underneath the hood with like pipettes. So 8 to 10 hours, I just would go underneath the hood and just start making these proteins. Like they're not proteins, they're what proteins are made out of. They're called peptides. And I would create them from scratch. But what I was doing was I was going into the ocean and finding the venom of the cone snail. And I would look at what the building blocks of those venoms were, and I'd recreate them. And then I would test them on like receptors in the heart or in the brain. And I was like saying, does these things hit certain things in the body? And I was able to find this one part of the venom that had a relationship with this receptor in the brain that had an interaction with memory and cognition. So it became this potential therapeutic for Alzheimer's, like a target. And then you can test whether it would be beneficial or not. But this is just like me, like surfing North Shore, surfing town all night, just making molecules because it was fun, putting it on the test and be like, oh shit, it can do something with the mind, or, oh, it can do something with your heart. Oh, it can do something here and there. So I just thought it was cool and fun. Like it was like
just tickling the itch of curiosity.
Yeah, it wasn't like I was trying to be like a, I don't know, Nobel Prize winner or anything. I just thought it was cool. Like for me, science still is this kind of art that I love to explore. And when I did that, there was a recruitment opportunity from the University of California, San Diego. A lab was very interested in that sort of trade. And they seen, oh, there's this kid from Hawaii that can do this. And I was beginning to really share videos and pictures and surfing. So I was sharing a bit of me outside of just the way I could make molecules. And the University of California, San Diego were very interested, and I got recruited into a PhD program. And at that point, it was a full ride, 5 years paid salary, $30,000 a year to go to school. School's paid, and then you get $30,000, and that was more money than I've ever thought I could.
And
make.
The key to blacks.
I didn't get the key to blacks, but I knew people with the key for sure. And when I went for recruitment week, I ended up surfing Black's Beach, and it was incredible. It was still to this day the best session I've ever had at Black's after living there for 6 years.
That's super funny you say that. So I'll segue. We'll come right back to that. I went to San Diego State for my first 2 years out of college, right out of high school. I had one session over there. Still to this day, it's probably top 10. It was howling offshores, 6 to 8, maybe 10 feet.
What time of day?
Afternoon.
Dude, same.
And it was one of those waves like I can count my hand where every wave was an insane barrel. And I got like 20 of these things. And it just, till we surfed till the black because it was so good. And sorry guys, but there's a bunch of goobers out. And I had to borrow one of my friend's boards. It was actually big. I borrowed this old 7.6 and it was insane. World class. Yeah.
It's on. And that wave is pretty rare too. Cause again, 6 years I was up there, it hasn't broken, but recruitment weekend, I borrowed a friend's board, then I went up and I got an incredible, the session was amazing session. Offshore, turquoise dolphins, wasn't really cold. I mean, I had a wetsuit, it was a little bit cold for a Hawaii boy going up, but relatively speaking for how good the waves were. And I remember pulling into waves that I thought, these are closeouts and just incredible, world class. And I was was like, well, I'm coming here for sure.
The ocean
like,
was giving you signs. That's the universe is giving signs, and they're just like, this is where I'm supposed to be.
I go and do what I want to do up the hill, and I walk down the hill, and I do what I want to do here, and to get paid. Like surfing as a career was never a reality up until San Diego, really. Yep. I never, though growing up with like Tori on the North Shore or on Big Island and seeing what he did like in the Triple Crown and his professional surfing career blossoming and coming to Maui and surfing with like Clayton and Dusty and people coming to the North Shore and the best in the world and being able to surf with them. Like I seen how hard they were working. Like I feel sometimes from the periphery, maybe we think that they're just so talented, they don't work at it.
Yep.
But I knew them and they work so hard. I remember their stories of saying, I'm so afraid I'm going to go to Tahiti in 2 days and it's going to be 10 feet and I got to go on a set. Like I need to do this. And it was like mental anxiety and physical training that they were putting themselves through. So when the other people seen, oh, they're just a freak, like I was privileged to be able to see another side of that, the humanity in their pursuit. And I just was like, I have other responsibilities that I can't choose that. Because in my mind, if you're not surfing with Tori or with Clayton or with Dusty, you're not good.
That's funny you say that. I had a very similar path. My generation, when I grew up, was coming through high school was Andy, Bruce, Eric Diaz, Kaimana, Henry. And they were all so good.
Yeah.
They were just 5 levels above all of us. And they won everything. I was like, I'm going to college.
Yeah.
I just never, surfing was always going to be a lifestyle for me.
Yeah.
And it's been a beautiful lifestyle. I'll have to find it. I knew some really good people that influenced me that like, I started boat driving in Tavarua and they're like, make the lifestyle, figure out how you can surf longevity wise. 100%. And I just never wanted it to be a career and just, it was always there. It's a love, but it's my hobby. But there's always a professional side that you have to, and I've been telling kids that basically recently. I have a couple of kids I'm mentoring to help them pull wires, and I'm like, add what you said earlier is add the skill sets.
Yeah.
Get tools in your belt that make you exclusive ones of ones. There's nobody that does what you do, and the more skills you can put on your tool belt, the more valuable you can be.
Totally. That's how I felt. I felt science was the lifestyle that supported my surfing, and to get 30 grand in my mind, that was a sponsorship. So I'm like, okay, and what do I got to do? I just have to learn. I was like, this is a hack.
Let's go.
So like I ended up doing that. And then I did it was a 5-year program, but I ended up doing 6 years at University of California, San Diego in the chemistry department. And I worked in a program called the Program of Interdisciplinary Environmental Research through Scripps Institution of Oceanography. So I was at Scripps a lot of my graduate school. And then I got my PhD in chemistry. So that's my schooling.
So you've mentioned a lot of things like surfing, science, Hawaiiana. How do all those things blend and influence one discipline to the other from your Hawaiian culture looking into science or science looking into surfing or vice versa? Where do like the connected and influence of each of those?
Yeah, I would say probably it's really rooted in the Hawaii side of it. Being a part of that foundation really has highlighted the ability to tell stories. Yeah, I'm such a fan of storytelling, and I love the stories that I grew up with from my uncles and my aunties about Hawaiian culture and about the history, the good, bad, and the ugly. There's so much drama and tension and pleasure and pain in the history that I try to add that into my surfing, and I try to add that into my science. You know, it's very Hawaii centric, even though it may not come off like I'm Hawaiian, I do this, I do that. The principles and the perspectives of Hawaiian philosophy are deeply embedded in the way I try to present my work, which now has become surfing and now has become science. Both these things were passions and lifestyles that weren't compensated with finances before, which was a beautiful time. And I think I'm pretty lucky that I had, I would say, a good 5 to 8 years of, I did this all because I love to do it, No one paid me. No one asked me to be a part of anything. I had to fight for it, but I fought for it because I loved doing it. And there was no pressure. And it was just a beautiful moment to be in my early 20s and not feel pressure of needing to do some scientific discovery or have to win a contest. Like, it was a beautiful time that now that there's finances within both, it has created the work, which I always lean back onto my Hawaiian culture to say, how do I navigate these relationships, these stories, and how do I present the work in a way that is not just globally tasty, but also hopefully relevant to Hawaii and the Hawaiian community.
Amazing. Nikola Tesla has a very famous quote, and it's like, if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. And obviously energy, and if you really want to understand those secrets of that universe, think in terms of that energy. I'd love to, what's your definition of energy, and what is your definition of mana that kind of gets translated into it? I'd love to hear your white lab coat definition to that.
Yeah.
And then Cliff Kapono, the Hawaiian surfer version.
Yeah, like, I feel I'm not a physicist, which from the scientific standpoint, I think the physicists have the deepest amount of time dedicated to trying to understand energy.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, and again, I'm not a physicist, so I could be totally botching this, but perhaps it's that the idea of energy is so powerful that it's difficult to define.
Yep.
And they're whether you're looking into the energy of the universe, is the universe expanding or is it staying constant, or what is matter? Does matter create energy? On the atomic, subatomic level, there's some sort of force that, whether it vibrates or oscillates, but it has the ability to affect another entity.
Yep.
And these entities, these matters, sometimes we can see and feel as humans. And supposedly a majority of our entire consciousness is something that we cannot even see or feel, this dark matter. And the energy still has an influence on that. So it's this medium that can transfer between multiple dimensions and realms of our universal existence, which is like, I can't even understand it, honestly, really. My human brain, evolutionarily, biologically, I don't think I have the tools, the machinery within my consciousness to fully understand what the fuck's going on. From a Hawaiian perspective, and just my Hawaiian perspective, I feel I do understand it. And it's not something that I try to define, but it's something that is easily felt. And mana is a very distilled expression of what that is. And for me, the mana is in so many things. And from a purpose standpoint, as Hawaii, I try my best to increase the amount of mana that I have. And maybe it's like increasing my ability to affect something or something else in the world. And I want that effect to be positive. I want it to make other people feel good. I want it to make other ecosystems function more appropriately. I want to find the level of balance in my life that I can give an effect. And to me, that's what the mana is for me.
Gotcha. And as a biologist too, you can look at these systems, and whether it's a really micro system or these big systems, the Hawaiian with the ha'ahupa'a, or regenerative farming, and what's the permaculture, where the whole systems are just working together, and there's whether you can do 1 acre or 100 acres or the whole valley from mountain to sea, it's inputs and outputs, and you could see that energy just flowing through. Yeah. It's amazing. That's kind of what this whole pod is, just trying to. Once I started paying attention to the energy and the inputs and outputs, you start seeing it, and then it gets passed on, and that's where the conversion of energy doesn't get destroyed, it just gets passed on at a vibration. So it's the input, and where does it come out on the output? It's so amazing.
I see that to me, I believe that very much in boards as well. Like I was just talking to Emil, Tahitian surfer, and he had a board out and he was riding one of Uncle Chuck Andrus's boards. And he was like, "Oh, how's this board, Cliff? What?" And I was like, "Dude, those are plenty or I said, "Those are good boards." And he looked at me, said, "Plenty mana inside." I was like, "Yeah, bro, those things have big mana inside, you know, like," and it's, I just was like, "Dude, you're so stoked. Those are insane boards." And it matches this energy out here. And same, like Uncle Jerry, I seen him and he made me a board, and that thing I can, and like, I'm so lucky he made it in a relatively quickly amount of time. Like I was astonished, and he asked me like, "What, clear?" I was like, "What can do color?" He's like, "Okay." Put color on it.
They last a little longer. And
it was, and I just was like, every time I pick up that board, you can feel it. You can feel that. I'm sure you know. I mean, it's like there's something about that, and that's this idea of this like energy transfer. I know, I can tell when a board is like made rushed, or made like, okay, you need this board, here's this board, versus a board that's like there's intention. I don't know. And
the love was put into it, and it's really like the energy, the sweat, the love was really put into it. And like, okay, what is this person going to ride it as, and visualize it. And you really think of, that's the creativity piece, and the muse and working with you. And you're like, and the shapers have this touch, and they're transferring that imagination, creativity to you. Kai and Keith have an amazing relationship, and Kai's getting really good, where he's just like, where do I want to take this board? Okay, they talk to the shaper. What do I want to do? It's pretty.
And sometimes it's like food, right? You want a gourmet dish because it's a special occasion, and sometimes you be a little bit bad boy and you go and you eat fast food. I think it's okay to have your menu of when you need it and why you need it. I think that's okay. But
I live by the 80-20 rule. Try to do 80% good. I'm on the Shane Dorian protocols. Venison and avocado and eggs.
Oh man, it can be hard on Maui for sure. As when you're visiting, Big Island Hilo. I mean, everything closes at 8:30, so you're cooking.
While we're on the topic of energy, where does the energy of a wave go when it breaks? Especially like Jaws, like those big ones, when you're next to the dynamite going off, kaboom, and that thing had started, that conversion of energy had started, if you want to go very meta, started with the sun.
Totally.
And where does that, it doesn't just end when that wave breaks.
No.
So where do you think it goes?
Well, the scientific side of it is this energy doesn't get consumed or lost, right? It's like it's a law of like thermodynamics. Like there's the conservation of energy. So it's not like, the wave breaks and then the energy disappears, which is crazy, because we're getting solar energy that's coming from that like crazy fire planet up there, coming across space. Like there's not even water. Like you think about the medium transfer, it's like from like flaming volcanic celestial
solar, like thermal nuclear reaction,
nuclear bombs. You're going nuclear bombs coming across just space, and then it's converging into now air, where there's no air, atmosphere. It's vacuum. Then it hits this like thing that we call atmosphere, and it starts vibrating. And then it hits the ocean through like some other kind of storm that gets transferred, and now it's like these massive rogue seas that crush those Coast Guard boats that are like 100 feet, and then they align themselves and they organize themselves, and then eventually they get to out here, and the whole idea that the water is not moving, it's the energy through the water,
and it's just concentrating at Jaws. It's just sucking from 180, 270 maybe, just,
and like the bottom of the ocean, it's like coming from the bottom, and then it feels the reef, and then it shoots up. It's like compressed. I think we think a lot of times this energy transfer with waves is very horizontal, because that's what we see in our peanut brain. but the energy goes up and down and side to side in a forward motion, or wherever the forward is, wherever the axis is, wherever your perspective is, but it's moving unilaterally in some sort of plane, but then it gets compressed and then it starts going through all the XYZ coordinates, and now you get energy going up back into space. It's almost like, take me back to the sun. And it's launching up, and then at Jaws, it's like, I mean, not even to say numbers anymore. It's seen 1,000-footer. It goes straight up back into the atmosphere and falls back down, and then it explodes. And I'm just like, this energy, like, in my mind, it's going everywhere. It's going into the reef. It's going into the shore. It's going into the air, the ehukai, that like spray. It's energy all inside that thing. It's just waiting around.
Oh, during the big day, the fog, you couldn't even see my house, the coastline.
Yeah, the
and
ehukai,
it was
insane. Yeah, like that's all energy in there, just sitting there, just like, I just fucking went on a crazy journey, and now I'm just checking you guys out, like that ehukai energy of the salt spray and the sea spray, and then some is going into the land, and dude, the craziest, some is going into us, and that's where I'm like, that's why it's crazy for me. It's like that solar energy is in me now. Like,
I heard scientists on the top of the crater on the quiet days on the big swells, they can hear, they're resonating the vibrations of the big swells hitting down there. You can hear it from here when it's huge, the cracks, the sound just coming up the valleys.
I mean, we'd be foolish to think about how resilient and robust this energy is as it's moving through so many different types of mediums, from, again, these solar flares to vacuum to air to water, wind. It can go through land. It can go through people. And what I don't know about is, what is the residence time of that energy in any body? How long does that energy exist in us before we transfer it to someone else? And maybe that's what we feel when we see guys like Shane, that they have so much energy in them from this place, that when they're just existing, they're just like resonating this energy, solar energy, like, dude,
that is profound.
I mean, after Albie got that wave, he was like not surfing the next swell, that on the big day, the Eddie swell, like he got 2 nuts ones. Dude, I see him on that ski, and I could, dude, like, felt like I was looking at him with like Predator goggles, where he was like glowing, just I'm like, whoa, dude, you just got filled up. Like, there's a lot of mana right now in that,
Monday, trying to get back to work after that Jaws swell, I was just worthless. After a week of Jaws, and what does it mean? I just had eaten shit on a 30-footer.
Dude, that was heavy. I ran back to the Big Island on that swell.
You got to come over with the tow board.
You
got to try.
I
got your lines with the data already that you've collected on the paddle and your lineups and knowing how the wave works, and then you'll see a whole nother data set of where to ride it, and these new lineup markers, and because those days are actually even rare, those really big days, and so.
Yeah, I'd love to. I would love to.
I'll tell you in. Don't you worry.
Well, that's a very peace of mind because
we got a good crew watching out.
Yeah,
Curtis and Colomona and the boys.
Man,
we all work together.
They are. I mean, all you folks, like, I remember seeing you pick up someone, and it's like, where's your driver, dude? It's so special, all you folks out there. Like, you're surfing it too, and when you're on the ski, and Curtis, Colomona, the twins, I mean, really everyone, everyone out there that is on a ski, putting that, and that's energy too, that's really powerful to know that this wave brings the riders, the guardians, the spectators. It's just
the international tribe I love of just big wave surfers. There's these, for doing this for 30 years now, since I was 18, chasing swells around the world. And the tribe that you meet with, the filmers, you see them in Tahiti or Fiji or the North Shore or Jaws, and the friends that I've made over the years, and they're just like oh, funny seeing you here. You're like, when I see you, I was like, yeah, welcome back. Hey, como mai.
Yeah. What I like about seeing you, I see you at the bay too.
Yeah.
That's what's nice, is to be able to see, like last night when we're surfing, like 2 foot bay.
Yeah.
And it's just like, again, that's a beautiful sunset, like offshore, maybe not treacherous or, adrenaline, but like, again, like even though it's not huge energy, there's still energy there.
Yeah, it's pure play at the end of the day. And I talked this one to Albie and Tori where we sat where you were, and I was like, at the end of the day, we're still chasing the same dragon that this. I took a client one time surfing, and she got this little barrel and this big at Tavarua, and she was buzzing.
Yeah.
But it's completely relative. But we've been chasing the dragon for 30 years, and our veins and dopamine are just like we need a really big hit to get that same.
We're
but
desensitized
it is the same thing, whether it's a 2-footer or a 30-footer.
Totally.
So, let's segue onto a little piece while we're talking about where the energy of waves goes. Your work on bathymetry. This is when I saw that, I just really wanted to pick your brain. So, you've done pipeline, cloud break, now Jaws, my three babies. Those are, I like my waves big and blue and lefts if they can. Yeah, and even Jaws is a right, but it's hometown just right there. So
the left's gnarly at Jaws. I've never went left, and I've rarely looked left. But
there's perfect ones. It's a different wave, and I've seen sometimes the energy swings left, and it's like a huge west bowl going that way, and sometimes it corners on the right. And what's funny is the Aaron Gold day when Pedro Collado caught that ridiculously huge. It was like a 35-foot huge wave each, and Ian Walsh went right on that wave, and it looks like a 15-footer.
Wow.
And it everything just pushed that way.
Yeah, wow.
And so it's just it's a more of a down the line. It doesn't have the bowl and the hook, but the good ones, if they're really good, will sit off deep on the west bowl and peel. It's kind of, I think it's kind of like pipeline,
Does it kind of grow?
And they're way taller.
I feel that's how Toto's feels too. It like you take off and it grows.
And you got to look at the set. There's 2 bowls, and it's a different bowl where like the inside bowl, you got to be like, do I want to commit to it and shoot it? It's kind of like a Makaha bowl where you got to like, or I'm kicking out and let's get out of here. And you got to have your driver or your pickup skis, weight and safety's got to be like
falling right behind them.
Yeah. Especially if you're paddling into a big one, but bathymetry.
Yeah. We did do Tahiti too. Te Aupo'o.
Okay.
We did that last summer, last 2 Novembers ago. But yeah, the whole idea behind this, mapping the reef, it's the lab that I'm a part of. We specialize in 3D modeling of coral reef, from like coral colonies all the way up to like multi-meter kilometer reef scale. So from a scientific standpoint, those are very important for identifying like ecosystem function, sort of like monitor states, things like that. I wanted to figure out how can I take that value and translate it to the surfing community. And when I looked at our surf breaks, very little is known about the reefscape or the bathymetry. I would say maybe something is known a bit about the bathymetry, but not necessarily the reefscape of that. Meaning, what types of coral exist? What's the complexity of the reef? So and this type of research is a bit expensive. So it's not just like DIY. We kind of do it DIY style, and we like being able to empower people with it. But in terms to have anything that possesses the rigor that worth scientific publication, we need to have a certain level of standard that we attain. And that's kind of expensive to collect the data in that fashion.
Okay, wait, hold on. God damn it. I thought Saturday's going to be quiet. I heard the homies shaping too. I was like, oh.
Nah, I think you probably use AI for your podcast.
I do.
Yeah, Adobe. Yeah,
I just do Adobe and it cleans it up. It's pretty bitchin'.
Yeah, but
okay.
Yeah,
so
typically
let's just start back. So it's expensive.
Yeah, typically in order to afford, like universities don't necessarily pay for a scientist's sort of research.
Yep.
if you're in academia and if you're in private industry, usually it has to make money at the end of the day to front the cash, private investing sort of thing. Mine was neither. Mine was not academic and mine was not private industry. So I had to figure out, okay, how am I going to like afford this for my team to work together? Because it's not just me that does this science. And I approached Reef footwear company, which they're like an amazing partner. But I think they got a new request. Usually people are like, hey, can I go on this surf trip? Can I get this? You know, like you have your requests when you go into your like team rider sort of position. And then I come in like, oh, can I map reefs? And they're like, what? Like I think in the beginning a bit.
How does this sell shoes?
Yeah, it was a bit confusing, you know, and they took a very big chance on it. And I told them, hey, I'm going to go map pipeline and I'm going to show you what the reef looks like in arguably the most famous wave on the planet, the most deadliest. The reef in Hawaii as a whole brings in over $80 million a year. So, 800 million across the whole state.
That's what I was going to say. I bet you it has to be more.
Yeah, and this was in 2001 estimate. So $800 million annually come in because of the reef in Hawaii. Pipeline is a strong contributor to that reef at Ehukai. So, but we know very little about it. We don't even really know what it looks like outside of a drone footage or someone snorkeling on the small days. So we ended up mapping it. We were able to show, interestingly, that there wasn't a whole lot of live coral reef at Pipeline. It's millennia old cemented reef. So
it feels like concrete when you hit it.
Yeah, it's great. And there's also a few live coral reefs of different types of like, they call them like Poecilopora sort of coral, that their polyps, the little bumps on them are pretty pronounced. So, and the way it sits, it's like a cauliflower.
Are those the what do you call it? Not the puka shells, but the scallop ones that'll cut the shit out of you? Tube coral.
No, they're not tube coral, but they're kind of like, they're like the cauliflower sort of looking coral. So like you'll be, okay, you hit the reef, you break your body, then you spin a little bit, and then you cheese grade your face on your way up kind of thing. Like it's like these little like the unlucky moments of when people really get sliced out there after a bad crash. It's usually they're hitting a small piece of live coral on the cemented reef. But we're just being able to show this that no one's ever seen before, and understand to have a reef like that, there's very much an interaction that happens on shore. So this specific type of reef, and really all reefs, we're starting to understand these relationships between the sand movement, the sediment or whatever. How do they move across? And seasonally, when you build on top of the shore, how that might inhibit the ability to really smooth out this reef and keep these grooves being maintained and sanded down.
So it's just wet sanding that reef.
Shaping it. You know, the shoreline is shaping these reefs. And if we prevent that, now we have different tides. Like it's very apparent. Growing up, 2 foot tide, right, fog, 2 feet high tide, it's bummer. Now it's like 3 feet, maybe 4 feet now, actual observed tidal ranges. So
in Hawaii?
In Hawaii. Yeah, it's you look at the NOAA, there's when you have NOAA tidals or a lot of tides, you have a predicted tide and you have an observed tide. And if you look at two, a lot of times it's feet difference between the two. So as tides start to shift and the environment is changing, if we don't have the infrastructure, the natural infrastructure in place to be able to adapt to that change, of course we're going to have a different wave. Things are going to change, and maybe not in our lifetime, but maybe our children's lifetime, maybe their children's lifetime, you know, like, and are we willing to take that risk if the reason why so many people are here and in putting resources into a community because of a wave, do we just take a risk and say, yeah, run it hard till no more? You know, it's just questions that we have, and being able to articulate that to a partner like Reef, the investment started to grow. And then it's like, okay, well, how does this is interesting. Where next? I'm like, let's go to Cloudbreak. You know, we went to Cloudbreak and we seen now that reef is incredibly vibrant, so alive, so sharp.
I got the scars to prove it.
Oh, me too. I mean, I broke my face straight into it. Like I went.
I go right here.
I went like straight into the I went macro level observations with touching it in the face. But when you look at the reef at Cloudbreak, maybe the amount of coral species change from pipeline, but the complexity in terms of structure is conserved, meaning the certain features we see on the reef at Pipe, we see it on the ledge section at Cloudbreak. And the shish kebab section is totally different than North Shore, but that's a different way.
So what's the similarity?
We're seeing the contours in the reef.
Okay.
And then we say, okay, what would this look like if we go to Chopo? Okay, we go down to Tahiti, conserved structure. We see the same sort of structure right on the West Bowl. So like now, but it's magnified. So it's different, but it's still the basic principles exist. We thought, okay, 3 of the best lefts, if not the best lefts on the planet. Conserved structure of the reef with these reef structures. Those are all lefts. Does this hold true if we scale it to the biggest barrel, whether it's a left or a right? Let's just see. So we think, okay, Jaws. And that was a bit of a struggle to get Jaws because it's so difficult to do these mappings, because when we map it, we use cameras, DSLR cameras, use a technique called photogrammetry, structure from motion. So it's people diving manually. So we can get millimeter resolution. We want to see every single polyp on the reef if we can. But we can't do the entire reef because these reefs are huge. So we usually pick a track. And partnering with Surfline, they provide us with anonymous data of people who have had their tracks mapped using GPS location. So we're able to see very clearly, working with Surfline as a partner, to say, where are people existing on this reef? So we take that data set and it gives us sort of an area where we should map. And then we go and we do that. Jaws, we were given that, but we did want to see a bit of entirety. So we started to use not only photogrammetry and photos, we used LiDAR, and we also used sonar. So we used different sort of techniques to be able to get a better map. So we ended up mapping Jaws, the complete reef. And we seen that the structure was conserved. We see right where those barrel sections are. We see the conserved formations that we see at Pipeline, Taupo, and Cloudbreak. Wow. These deep ravines and canals that exist. They're called spur and groove. They're not like new things. They're known in biology and ecology, marine ecology. They're on spur and groove structures. How they're positioned and how they're oriented and the ratio of flat reef to these spur and grooves, we're starting to understand using sophisticated programs, the math behind how these things are positioned. And we're finding these interesting data points where there's a balance between you want a deep ravine and you want a flat part of reef. And depending on how they're oriented in relation to swell, they produce crazy barrels. And being able to do that this past October, I mean, it's always windy, it seems like, and it's always so swell. And we ended up trying to go one time, and we ended up not being able to go. You know, we align it with Reef. Reef is such an amazing partner, and we understand we do need to collect some sort of imagery and story to share with people. I'm like, we can't get out there. It's too messy. We can't do it. It's just, we need the conditions to be right. And then Kolomona called me randomly. He's like, Hawaiian.
You said that really good. That was his voice.
Yeah, he's like, Monday is on. If you guys can, come. So I was like, called up everyone. They're like, less than 24 hours. Like, hey, like, can we make it? Flights all crazy, scuba tanks, boats, robots, all this. Like, it's like, dude, let's just take the boat. So I ended up loading the boat from Kauai High, and we ended up boating over to Jaws and crossed the channel. It was beautiful. Okay. It took us 3 hours to get to Jaws from Kauai High.
Wow.
And we did the whole survey and mapping in the morning. We went to the harbor. We hung out. We went back the next morning. We mapped just a little bit left over of it that we needed. And now I was looking, and then literally like for 2 weeks straight after the map was made, I was just looking at it, and I was going back to footage I was looking back at footage when, Shaun got that hands up fucking revolutionary wave. The days that Healy was just dropping in no vest, crazy tow waves, like you guys out there towing in a like crazy one, just looking and try to see, okay, where would they be? And then cross-referencing with actualized data provided to us from GPS trackers.
Can we do a little Zoom call? And you can share your screen. And
totally, yeah.
Off the record.
Yeah. They'll be like, oh, Shawnee, he's getting every wave of the year now. But yeah, and looking at actually the positioning of in relation to where the cliff face is and the deep trench on the side. When we're out on that Saturday, when it was really big, and it was this past winter, the sets are like bombs. I was like, whoa, these are huge. And I was like in the spot. I think I'm okay here. Like, I think I'm okay. And I was, granted anything can happen, but for the most part, it's interesting to me that I'm trying to now, like, I close my eyes and I go into this like Tron 3D map to see like, hey, I think I'm like here on the reef, or I'll see someone catch a wave. I remember Billy was sitting where Billy sits,
North Peak,
and I was like, but then I knew it was just inside of him, and then I was like, and I don't know if Billy knows what's underneath in terms of he's seen it, but he knows what's in there. So like, I started to see.
I bet you he's dove it. I guarantee it. Him and Miola have gone free diving.
I'm sure they've seen it. In terms of like what they know what's in there, like what I see is data. They have that same thing, but it looks different to them. And like Albie too. I know he looks at these barrels and he knows, like, maybe it's spatially a different expression. Like, it's not just numbers and reef and 3D model, but they're mapping it too. Those guys have mapped Jaws. You've mapped it. Like your crew has mapped this page. Like, you folks all have this map in your mind. And to me, I didn't have enough time out there to have mapped it the same way. My map is very low resolution. I'm in like standard definition. You guys are like 25K, whatever. I'm like just like, iPhone, Nokia before, just like grainy, pixelated. But now having this 3D map, it helped me to like really start to like say, okay, that's what I was wondering about in there. I was wondering about this. So it's helped me, I guess, fill in a lot of holes that I had before, which came in really handy this past, I would say, winter, in knowing where I was and what I wanted, and to be honest with myself of what do I want out there and what am I trying to find and what part of the reef do I want to exist on. And it's just given me a bit more, I guess, ability to be good with what I want to do out there and where I want to be, because now the parts of the reef that I want to connect with, I feel I have my own space there that I feel I know where the parts of the reef I want to connect. And it's cool to see now I can see what the parts Billy wants to, parts that Albie and Tori and Paige and Ian and Kai, and like all these people that, I see like where you're going, all you're talking about now. Now I'm like, wow, that's so cool to hear everyone's relationship with that reef, whether it's been mapped and seen and 3D modeled. That's just my weird trip. You folks have already done that. And now it's cool to see young crew coming up and they're starting their map. It's really cool.
That's amazing. While the whole time you're talking, I'm trying to put it where the ledge is, and I have like a dozen different landmarks triangulations, I guess you would say, depending on the day and the size of where you sit and the boil I'm looking for. You got a lateral one, just a circle. I'm looking for a boil, and then the pine tree in the EL Valley, and the pine trees going up the valley, and how many pine trees you get.
Now I'm saying, okay, now I'm remembering where those things that make the boils are. And I'm like, yeah, okay. You're like, yeah, these 3 boils. I'm like, dude, I now can see that. I've never seen it on the wave, but it's crazy. You're talking through lived experience and I'm talking through theoretical. which actually allows the honesty to come in and be like, dude, I would never in a million years tell anyone like, yeah, map your best wave and you're going to go get barreled. Like I would say that.
You found your barrel this winter.
I mean, it's lucky, super lucky. To get
that was a beautiful one. Don't downplay it.
But that was, I think that was, it did have a combination of the two. It allowed me to, again, just because you folks out here, you're so intimately connected to this reef. I don't live here, you know, and I don't have the time to really spend and to be able to still, and that's what's cool about the 3D mapping. It allows you to spend time on a reef without physically being there. This is a sort of a mantra that I really subscribe to, is that technology can enhance our relationship with nature. And yeah, you can use technology poorly or appropriately or respectfully, but that's just a tool that it can enhance our relationship. And that's what this 3D modeling has done. It helps, you know, people go under scuba to survey the reef. That's how basically you used to have to do coral reef analysis, scuba or dive. And we don't breathe underwater, so we have a limited, finite amount of time to observe. Whereas if you make a 3-dimensional model, you can go back onto your computer or put on VR headset or whatever, and you can exist on there until your eyes hurt. You know, it just gives you that ability to study, to understand without the limitation of breathing, not being able to breathe underwater. Same with me. I was able to spend literally like hours every day just sitting in front of a computer, looking at the cracks at Jaws, and just being like, fuck, what? Like giggling to myself, people like in the lab, like, dude, what?
So there's just this massive channel, obviously, the ledge, and then it's a pinnacle that if you look at just from bird's eye view, it's that point that comes all the way out, and it's just valley on each side, right?
Yes.
And so it triangulates, and then that pinnacle has its own. It has the ledge, cracks, North Peak, West Peak. Yeah,
but it extends where you're saying North Peak, West Peak, all that. Where you folks are when the toes, there's a whole nother world out there.
There's Double D calls it. That's the third bell.
When
you're out there and you can see almost into Hana.
Yeah, so that's where the reef extends in a significantly, like you could dive that. On the other side of that, now you're going into the deep blues.
Yeah.
You know, and that's where I see now, okay, that's where the tow teams and you guys are, that's your zone.
That's the fishermen are hitting the Onos.
Yeah, that's where it ends. So it's so far out. And we're just kind of in like, really like, we're the inside.
Because I've seen it. I mean, if you can do it, it definitely pops. Sometimes they'll pop.
Yeah.
Pop. And then they're coming in. Yeah. And then you're chasing, where'd it go? And then it comes back in. There it comes again.
Yeah. But in that northwest area, there's a bunch of spur and grooves on a tremendous scale. We're talking 50 feet deep to the bottom, and then you go down 30 feet. Now you're on the walls of the crack. So you got 20 feet of crack at the bottom of the ocean.
To rewind the clock 10,000 years, sea levels are lower or just the lava coming down the mountain?
That's the question. You know, and that's what's cool to understand geological timescales and understand a bit of science is we think about the formation of these reef structures. It's not just like our lifetimes. It's tremendous generations over time where sea level has changed at different heights. Was that sea level lower in that time where now that's where these small reefs started to grow, barrier reef systems? And then as sea level risen, those got cemented over time. Did the wave energy impact them and groove them out? You know, there's so many factors that would take more investigation to fully bring understanding. But it's cool to, like you said, to be like, okay, sea level rise. Okay, times of changing. That's just having more thought. And it's just
changing your scope too.
Yeah.
So here's an anecdotal story that will probably go with your data set, anecdotal data. So in Fiji, I was working with a client and we're on a mega yacht. I was doing lifeguarding for him and we went out to frigates. So if you look at Fiji has just those massive barrier reefs, and Fiji is a really old land. It's not like Hawaii where it's new lava coming up and new land. And they're like old, all the land, if you go up into the mountains and on the main interior, it's limestone and granite, like this old land. And then you go to the reefs and they have these massive barrier reefs. They're like square miles of reef. Like you go to Cloudbreak, it's like something like 10 square miles. And you just look up the chain of the Mumakas and there's a bunch of those all the way heading north. So we're down south out by Frigates. And they were heading out on the tender to go surf frigates, and I had the jet ski, and went out early in the morning, and I was like, I used to pop and jig off this ledge. I was like, I'll catch up with you guys. And out there, the reef, it literally goes from 2 feet to dry reef on low tide to 1,000 feet, just sheer at like probably a 70 to 80 degree thing. And then you'd come to these big cracks and you're like, I don't know, some of them were like 50 yards to 100 yards, but they're just these perfect V's.
Wow, yeah.
And I just like envisioned, I was like, this is the top of old mountaintops that were carved by water. To think 20,000 years ago when sea levels were 300 feet lower, and I just envisioned, we go to this next island. It was 2 points that actually... There's where they filmed the Blue Lagoon up north. It's this other, I forget the name of the island, but there's a little bay and there's like 3 little islands, and you come in, there's actually a sick little left on a really good westfall, but it's where they filmed the original Blue Lagoon with Brooke Shields. The one island is this little Chinaman's hat sized island, and it's limestone, it's carved, and it's surrounded by caves, and you can go in and out with the paddle boards. And then there's this old village, and it's like stepping back in time. You come into it, we talk to the village, give the kava, can we anchor, can we go check out? And we get in there, and they take us, and it's famous, they'll do the tours. You got to, at high tide, you got to swim under, and you come into this massive chamber, and you take your dive lights. There's petroglyphs on this sea cave that like predate Polynesian culture by, they don't even know who, but they know somebody did. At low tide, you can get into it. But I was just like blown away, just like, what is it? And then I came back to the island. I basically was telling the story of jigging into these cracks, and then my experience of going into the sea cave and these petroglyphs that nobody knows. And this, if you ever heard of the theory, it's a little conspiracy, but the lost continent of Mu, MU, was what they always say, like before it was like Atlantean times. So Pacific had their own advanced culture. Atlantis had their culture, cataclysm event. Something happened and we had to start over again and repopulate. But Fiji is just the top of these massive mountains. And it was like seafaring, but big mountains. And I just remember like looking at those cliffs. It was just how, when I was on the reef, it just reminded me of going down the Poly. And you'd find these cracks.
I mean, there's so much there in terms of, again, the energy, whether it's fresh water on land or whether that's just the grinding of sand from the wave pulling that offshore. It's the energy is not just like, energy is important for like millennia, thousands of years. The energy needs to exist the way the energy needs to exist for 1,000 years to make something relevant for that people after. So inhibiting that, and that's why a lot of times, it's like coastal development or shutting down water flow. It may seem like not a big deal because we don't see the change within our lifetime, but that obstruction is so cataclysmic for 1,000 years down the road. Like we just are changing a flow of energy that needs to exist. Like it's like a...
Hey, thank you very much for tuning into the Buoy Report Podcast. Much appreciated. If you enjoy this episode and you made it all the way to the end, do me a favor. Hit like, hit subscribe, hit share, maybe throw a comment. Just let me know where you're watching this episode out on one of the many platforms that are out there. If you really want to stay in touch with us, head over to my blog, thebuoyreport.com/blog. Sign up for our newsletter, and I'll shoot you an email once every 1 or 2 months, just letting you know what we got going on in the world of renewable energy, big waves, real estate, anything other that I think is cool, worth sharing. And a bunch of little nuggets. The guys that do sign up for it, I get a lot of really good positive feedback, and it's a fun one. So I promise I won't spam you with a bunch of crap. Aloha.